New technologies came about such as the telegraph, telephone, radio, typewriter, cash register, and the calculator. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. One of the most revolutionary innovations was electricity, and Thomas Edison created the light bulb. Steam engines capable of powering large ships with improved refrigeration could transport things faster. Two technologies important to automobiles: creation of gasoline and the self-contained engine. Charles and Frank Duryea created the first gasoline-driven motor vehicle, while Henry Ford created his famous car franchise. There was a very large influx of cars. The Wright brothers created and flew the first glider. Charles Lindbergh made a famous flight from New York to Paris.
The Bessemer process is converting iron into steel by blowing air through molten iron to burn out the impurities and create a much stronger metal. The steel industry rose in western Pennsylvania and eastern Ohio because of an abundance of iron ore was found. There was a demand for hard coal and later soft coal. Because of the spread of the steel industry, the transportation system emerged. Freighters, ships, and railroads became more available to transport oil. Shippers used new steam engines to speed the unloading of oil, and the steel companies and railroads developed a close relationship. The oil industry descended from the steel industry because they needed it for lubrication of machines. Then petroleum supply grew quickly because of the major drilling that started.
Laboratories started to emerge in favor of corporation research, and there was a decline in government support for research. Engineers were occupied with corporations, but scientists did not support this. They liked to stick to basic research. Taylorism was the theory that the production process should be divided into different tasks, therefore lessening their dependence on one particular employee. They were also able to perform simple tasks at a greater speed. Henry Ford introduced the assembly line, which was a particular place and a concept. Electricity was highly relied on. The assembly line enabled Ford to raise wages and reduce hours.
Railroads gave easier and faster access to distant markets and sources of raw materials, which developed new corporate organizations. Subsidies, foreign loans, and investments funded the railroad. Mergers played an important part in the railroad expansion. The railroad contributed to the growth of the modern corporation. Limited liability was when investors were only liable for the amount they invested and not the debts of the corporation. Carnegie opened his first steelworks in Pittsburgh and dominated the industry, along with his associate Henry Clay Frick. United States Steel Corporation was created by J.P. Morgan by merging Carnegie's interest. The modern corporation led to consolidation.
Horizontal integration is combining a number of firms that were engaged in the same type of enterprise. Vertical integration is a company that takes over different businesses to support its primary function. John Rockefeller created the Standard Oil Company, but he had only expanded horizontally. Pool arrangements, trusts, and holding companies were other forms of consolidation. A holding company was a central corporate body that would buy up the stock of various members. Industrial giants created the basis for a big public controversy, which was a debate over concentrated and economic political power.
Survival of the fittest was the idea of capitalism and equal opportunity to succeed and gain wealth. Some people succeeded, but the most successful businessmen were corrupt and tried to defend their power. Social Darwinism was when only the fittest individuals survived and flourished in the marketplace. Herbert Spencer was heavily into social Darwinism. People of great wealth argued their power, saying they could use their riches to advance social progress. Andrew Carnegie created the gospel of wealth. Trust funds should be used for the good of the community. Horatio Alger wrote Rags to Riches stories. Louisa May Alcott wrote Little Women, a story about women's roles and ambitions.
Alternate philosophies challenged capitalism. The Socialist Labor Party wanted stronger ties with organized labor. It later formed the American Socialist Party. Henry George opposed monopolists by creating a single tax on land, thinking it would distribute wealth equally and eliminate poverty. Fraternal cooperation replaced competition, and the idea behind this was called nationalism. The problems with monopoly was that people did not like monopolies because they they could charge high prices, and it led to recessions.
There was a large influx of immigrants, making the working class grow dramatically. Workers first came from Western Europe and then Eastern Europe. The labor contract said that employers paid for the passage of their workers and later deducted that amount from their pay. There were also growing ethnic tensions. There was low job security, low wages, and bad and harsh working conditions. Agrarian people had trouble adjusting to society. There was less need for skilled workers, so more women and children had to work.
There was a failure in creating national unions. The Molly Maguires used violence in battles with coal operators. There was a railroad strike in 1877 because of a 10% wage cut. This was the first major labor conflict. The Knights of Labor was a labor organization where membership was open to all who toiled. They fought for 8-hour workdays and abolition of child labor. They wanted to replace the wage system with a cooperative system. Therefore, the workers themselves would control their workplaces. Terence V. Powderly was a leader who led the organization to expansion. Eventually, the organization disappeared altogether because of strikes.
The AFL was a craft union where they only accepted skilled workers. Samuel Gompers was the main leader. There was a strike at McCormick Harvester Company and bombing at the Haymarket Square. This was a symbol of social chaos and radicalism. Anarchism became the code word for terrorism and the violence to the public mind. This was a constant obstacle of the AFL. There were few gains for the laborers and jobs were insecure. There were many widespread strikes and protests. Workers would move from one job to another, and advantages lied with capital.
In the Homestead Strike, the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers was the most powerful trade union in the country. Under the Carnegie system, the union was only able to maintain a foothold in the Homestead plant near Pittsburgh. Henry Clay Frick wanted to get rid of the union and wages were cut at Homestead. The Amalgamated called for a strike, the government intervened, and eventually the Amalgamated surrendered. The Pullman Palace Car Company manufactured railroad sleeping and parlor cars near Chicago. George Pullman let workers stay in his town, but he had high rents and lowered wages. Workers went on strike and paralyzed the railroad company, which America was in need of. The president sent troops to stop the strike, and then it collapsed.
What can we learn from the first great rise of industrialism and capitalism in the United States that can affect our future economic well-being as a nation? There were many creative inventions in the late 1800s and early 1900s that led to the rise of a great industrial and capitalist economy. We can learn that for our economy to flourish, we need to be creative and productive. If you work hard, you deserve better benefits. A company should also treat their employees with respect so that they will be obligated to work up to the expectations. We learned from the many strikes in labor unions that workers are unhappy with low wages, long hours, and other unfair conditions. We should learn to treat employees with conditions they deserve. Competition in business is good for the economy because it provides more opportunity and distribution of power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, was said by John Dalberg Acton. Therefore, with competition, corruption and monopolies can be avoided.
Those who have acquired a large amount of money through their work should not be obligated to share it, but they have the right to do what they want with it. So if they want to give it to the public, that is their choice, not the government's. Everyone still needs to pay taxes, but only to the extent that is needed. Excessive taxes on the rich should not be acceptable because they used their brains for new ideas, worked hard towards success, and deserved what they got. Andrew Carnegie embodies the idea of a good capitalist, and we can learn that you should strive to create business and achieve your dreams. Anyone can go from rags to riches if they strive to achieve success, as shown in the stories by Horatio Alger.